Final Fantasy XIV is a massive game with thousands of hours of content. What I'm going to do here is break down some of the major plot points for those of you who want to know more about Eorzea, but may not have time to experience it all firsthand. Today, we're going to break down the story of the Gunbreaker. The story begins with the Warrior of Light being recruited by God's Quiverbow to help hunt down a group of highwaymen who've been attacking people on the outskirts of Gridania. You head out of the city and see a Hrothgar and a Viera getting attacked. The Hrothgar is holding his own, but he suddenly drops down in pain when one of the bandits attacks the Viera. Fortunately for her, you're there to help out. The pair thanks you for your aid, and the God's Quiver shows up too late to do anything other than identify the fallen bandits as members of the group that they've been hunting. They find it strange that they decided to attack the strangers. They never targeted people who looked like they could fight back, but they probably will think twice before they do it again. The Quivers vow to continue looking for the remaining bandits before leaving the three of you alone. The Hrothgar is a bit more bothered by the attack than the guards. The bandits hadn't tried to rob them at all, going straight for the kill as if that's what their goal was all along, and they would have succeeded if it wasn't for you. He introduces himself as Radamyn, and his friend is Sophie. The two of them came from Ul'dah, where he had once been a soldier for Garlemald. It wasn't by choice. His family had been taken hostage, and he'd been forced to serve to keep them alive. Since then, he's managed to escape from that life. Sophie was a member of a resistance movement fighting against Garlemald until they were all rounded up or killed. Her and Radamyn had decided that they'd have a better chance of surviving if they stuck together, so they began traveling together. Radamyn had once been the personal guard to his queen, but he'd failed to protect her. He even lost his wife and son, yet he has honed his skills over the years, and he feels that he could use them to help people, which is why Sophie suggested he look for work as a bodyguard in Eorzea, starting in Gridania. Radamyn asks you to work with them since you know your way around Eorzea, and in exchange, he'll teach you the art of being a gunbreaker. A true wielder of a gunblade, not like the Garleans that you fought who've been wielding lesser versions of the weapons. The Empire uses edged weapons with firearms bolted to them, but the weapons made by Radamyn's clan use etherically imbued cartridges that ignite and release ether when you pull the trigger. This sends shockwaves through the blade, making it more destructive, and the cartridges can even be fired in the air to produce barriers. More explanations will come later if you decide to join them. You agree to take the training as payment, and the three of you become a team, because who wouldn't want to learn how to use a gunblade? Cloud Strife may be one of the most popular characters from Final Fantasy, but the gunblades from Final Fantasy VIII are by far the coolest weapons. Radamyn thinks it's a good idea to find a job first, then train you in between assignments since food isn't free, but he has no idea where to start. You suggest the Adventurers Guild, since that's how you got started, so you take them to Gridania. Once Mother Mayone makes them formal members of the guild, the time has come for them to be able to accept assignments, and they've already been given their first potential client. A man named Lassenschau is waiting at the Wailing Barracks, and Sophie and Radamyn decide to head there without your help so they can learn the city. When you all arrive, you're given a briefing about your assignment. Your task is to guard Ul'dah, a gifted musician who was assaulted during a recital. Her manager canceled all of her public appearances until the assailant can be brought to justice, but she's gone a bit stir-crazy and wants to walk around the city. Your job is to guard her during her little stroll, a job that Radamyn and Sophie eagerly accept. It's public knowledge that her manager hired the Adventurers Guild, so it won't be hard for the people who attacked Ul'dah to know that she's out. So Radamyn wants you to be on guard. While you wait for Ul'dah to get ready, he suggests that you check around to see if anyone has a grudge against the girl. A few people think that it could be one of her fans, but Radamyn's not convinced. The girl is a bit loud and has a strange fetish for Viera ears, and definitely won't be hard to miss. Radamyn decides that you and he will escort the girl on her walk while Sophie stays behind as backup if you get pinned down. The two of you head off with Ul'dah, who immediately gets swarmed by fans. Radamyn decides to see if he can find out why the bandits are attacking her from these newcomers. From what they say, Editha has only just begun performing, and some of the other musicians are jealous of her success. As you and Radamyn come to the conclusion that another musician is responsible for the attacks, bandits appear. They recognize their target by her rabbit ears, something that's a bit stupid since the girl isn't of the era and could have easily just taken the things off. Radamyn uses the fight as a time to teach you a bit about being a gunbreaker. You deal with the bandits, but as the walk takes you to the amphitheater, a masked woman with a really big monster seeks it after Editha. I don't know where she got the thing, but fighting it, the bandits, and keeping Editha alive will definitely give you a crash course in wielding your new skills. After you win, the masked woman is revealed to be Undine, one of the other performers who you interviewed earlier. She was angry that Editha stole her fan, so she decided to have the girl murdered. Even the Gradanian police are shocked that she would try to kill the girl over something like that. She even went as far as to pay the bandits in the woods, and because of her description of Editha's bunny ear headdress, they mistook Sophie for her. In a world with a whole race of women walking around with rabbit ears, that's the only descriptive feature the bandits asked for so they could track their target. In any case, everything worked out fine in the end. Before you go, Editha requests a word in private where she reveals herself to be a sylph in disguise. All she really wants to do is play music, but if people find out what she is, then they'll run her out of town. Still, since you risked your life to keep her safe, she thought it was only fair that she told you the truth about who she was. Of course, the three of you agree to keep the secret, and you go your separate ways. Radamyn is impressed by how quickly you grasp the differences between using a gunblade and a regular sword. He goes into a long story about how the Queen Gunhilda was guarded by a group of unique warriors called Gunhilda's Blades. Gunhilda's Blades eventually became known as the Gunblades. While he's talking, Sophie is so bored that she starts to fall asleep on her feet. When she can't take Radamyn's monologue anymore, which was an interesting, if a bit long-winded way of saying that it was his duty to pass on the history and skills of the Gunbreakers, she interrupts, causing him to decide to pick up the lesson later. Now that he's seen Gradania, he wants to see more of Eorzea. Sophie suggests Ul'dah because of its markets that have goods from around the world. Well, we know where her money's going, so it's off to Ul'dah you go. When you arrive, not only has Sophie changed clothes, she's going to do that in every city to, quote, blend in, although I think she's just a glamour addict, but they found a new client. A woman named Oriel is seeking to hire some bodyguards to keep her husband away from her and her son. Every time she's alone, Gerard harasses her, and if she leaves the city, she's afraid he'll follow her, so she wants you all to scare him off if he shows up. Radamyn doubts he'll show up if he sees armed guards, so you all hide to catch him when he appears. Sure enough, he shows up as expected, but it doesn't seem to be all that threatening. He claims to only want what's best for his son. Despite his words, when Radamyn threatens to kill him, he runs off. Oriel is pleased with your performance and leaves with her son. Easy enough job, right? You know that's not the case. Nothing about your work has ever been easy. Sophie feels the same way, and she wants you to follow them. Her hunch is right. You catch up to Eorzea in time to see her trying to sell her son to some rather unsavory fellows. Before you can step in, the boy's father confronts the slavers and is thoroughly beaten. Radamyn goes to help, but he's racked with sudden pain, so you have to do it. Gerard thanks you, and Sophie explains that the reason she knew something was wrong was because Eorzea showed signs of being a somnus addict. A lot of people wouldn't have noticed the signs, but Sophie had seen them before. Gerard admits that he knew about it as well, and he blames himself. He had a gambling problem, and Eorzea had taken their son and left him. That act had caused him to turn his life around, but once he had paid off his debts and tracked down his wife, it was too late. She had fallen in with the bad crowd and had used somnus to escape. It made her not care about anything, even her own child. But Gerard knows of a place that can treat people like his wife, and he has enough gills saved to get her started on the treatments. While she's getting better, their son will stay with him. Radamyn chastises him for jumping in a fight like that. If he dies, there'll be no one left to look after his kids, so he needs to be more careful. He promises that he will before heading off with his family in tow. Radamyn apologizes to you for collapsing, and since you'll be fighting together, he thinks it's only fair that he explains why it keeps happening. When he was a part of the Imperial Army, he disobeyed a direct order and was sentenced to solitary confinement for over a decade. During that time, he was forced to wear a Magitech collar that they used to electrocute him whenever they wanted, and they wanted to, a lot. Even after years of being free, his body still suffers from the effects at random. He's gotten better, yet he still has a while before he's back to 100%. That's part of the reason why Sophie sticks with him, so she can treat him. They met in the same Garlean prison where she was waiting to be executed along with a few members of the Resistance and some other undesirables. Some of them were somnus addicts, which is why she recognized the signs. Radamyn had been tunneling out of his cell a bit each night for 10 years. The problem was, he had dug in the wrong direction. Instead of tunneling out of the prison, he tunneled into Sophie's cell. Fortunately, his mishap caused a ruckus that let him and Sophie escape. He went home, only to find his family dead. Shaking off the depressing memories, Radamyn decides it's time to plan your next outing, so the three of you head to Limsa Lominsa, the city of pirates, to begin your next adventure. And that's where we're going to stop for now. If you like this video, then hit the like button, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next part of the story.